Hello, welcome back to this episode of the What They Said Influencer Marketing Podcast. I know you've been on the edge of your seat waiting for another one, but it's here. I'm back. I'm Sammy. I'm your host. And I'm bringing you this from Pretty Green, the global creative comms agency that is award-winning and does all of the good things for the creator economy. I'm really excited to be joined by Alex Payne today, founder of The Influence Room, and a whole host of other things, a real repertoire that we're going to get into.
Smorgasbord of startups and scale-ups.
So you do a whole host of things, Alex. Can we just have an overview, a snapshot, and then we'll get into influence?
We can do that.
But let's
we can go
hear
over
it.
So my background is in sports broadcasting, and I'm at an age now, sadly, where I'm dealing in decades rather than years. So that was great fun in its heyday. The world has changed very quickly, as you will well know. And so for the last 7 or 8 years, I've had what is a fairly chunky podcast called The Good, the Bad, and the Rugby, and I do it with two sort of former England reprobates, really, both of whom have got quite interesting lives outside of the playing field. So James Haskell is obviously tabloid fodder at the moment for all sorts of reasons, but has been on I'm a Celeb, is a DJ, he is a
household name,
international man of mystery. And then Mike Tyndall he sort of went to Australia in 2003 and won a World Cup and married a princess. So if Carlsberg did sporting trips, that was right up there. So he's obviously got his own profile. And together we have a show that is... It's more than a podcast. We do live tours and merch and events. And out of that has fallen a gin, where we're trying to raise money to look after injured rugby players. We have built the most successful women's rugby podcast as our sister show. There's a broadcasting bit, there's a podcast bit, and then out of everything that I've sort of experienced by having a very tepid media profile, the Influence Room was born about 6 or 7 years ago, if not a little bit longer. And that's the sort of the undercurrent to everything I do. That's what I call the day job.
I'm going to be honest, I'm feeling quite intimidated by your experience hosting.
Right.
I don't feel
Don't
qualified,
you worry about it.
So I will fade into the background and not be the centre of attention. But so we've just covered off how much you do.
Yep.
Out of that massive pie, let's just focus on one little slice.
Yes.
Well, it's not little because it's done huge things.
Yeah.
You are founder of The Influence Room.
Yeah.
Could you just give it... I mean, the description here in an article, you said that it's a mix between Tinder and LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Not my bingo card for this year, not a combination I expected to see, which will no doubt have HRs everywhere horrified. But can you give us an idea of what the Influence Room is? And then we're going to dig into that. Okay,
so the Influence Room is essentially a barter economy. And it is a place where good brands swap interesting opportunities with good people. And the word influencer has been through many kind of iterations. We talk about people of influence, and we've got journalists on our platform, celebrities, nano influencers, micro influencers, all sorts, content creators as well. The reason that we talk about it, actually, I think, as I said, we're about 7 years old. We spent quite a lot of money with an American agency that put a lot of time and money and effort into trying to tell us what we were. And we got the bill through and we paid it, and we all sort of winced, and there was a lovely glossy deck. And about a week later, we had one of our clients who turned around and said, "Do you know what you are? You're a cross between Tinder and LinkedIn." And we were like, that is just such a good description of what we do. Because it is about matchmaking the brands with the people that love them and allowing them to then go on a journey and for it to be very authentic, very organic. There's lots of data into the platform, and there's lots of content capture that we provide for our clients as well. But there's a very simple story that explains why we do what we do. And you'll know far more. You said you don't know much about sport. I don't know a huge amount of it about influencer marketing. I don't know much about marketing because of sports background.
We'll host a very effective sports marketing podcast. Exactly.
But I think often there's a real value in coming at something from I can't remember what the exact expression was, but I once listened to a bloke at Google. It's something like naive expertise or something like that, where you should always have someone at the table who doesn't really know what it is you're doing, because they can often look at it from a very different perspective.
Yeah.
And I think that is where we have come from with the Influence Room. So the story is that I mentioned the sort of media background. I've got absolutely no interest in celebrity or influence. I don't really do very much social media. But because I had a fairly tepid media career, I used to get offered things by brands, invited to events, sent boxes, etc. And 99 times out of 100, I was fairly confused, baffled, not hugely interested. And the reason that we built this company came about because I was sent a box with 500 quid's worth of Star Wars merchandise in it. Didn't ask for it.
The dream.
Well, for some. It ended up on my desk at work. I walked in and I opened it and I was like, this is extraordinary. I have no idea why I've been given it. And the story goes that the Star Wars had used an agency to find 100 people to send these gifting boxes out to. They'd scraped data tools, they'd sat around a table, they'd looked for addresses, they'd sent them out, hoping that people would use the box to create content to promote a back-to-back. They were showing their movies back-to-back on a channel over the course of a weekend. Sent the box to me. I've got absolutely no interest in Star Wars whatsoever. I haven't seen it since I was 8. I don't want the box. I don't want to create content around Star Wars, and I'm certainly not sitting down to watch the films all weekend. And what I was left with at the end of a real waste of everybody's time is, why can they not find 100 people at the click of a button who go, I freaking love Star Wars. Please send me the box and I will create the content around your movie screenings because I am a fan of the films. This is the most successful movie franchise in history we're talking about. And they're just going through a sort of process that is not really giving them anything. I think
scattergun approach.
It's scattergun, it's hit and hope, it's sow the seed and hope you get something back for it. So we have built the platform whereby, instead of brands running out, there's real value still in going to the people you want to talk about you, but we have built the sort of the pull element, which is, if you're doing something interesting, pop it through the influence room and find the people that want to be a part of it because they're really interested, they're curious to try it, they want to be a part of the story you're telling, and they want to do it because it's something that's really interesting to them. So we are this kind of Tinder and LinkedIn analogy, whereby brands post campaigns, they invite people to get involved in it. People, the influential people on the other side of the marketplace, can bid if they love it, and the brand then chooses who they want to work with, based either on the passion in the message that they send, or the data that comes with the influencers' social media handles or event attendance, whatever it might be. So there is real value in, as I said, that sort of push element of a brand knowing who they want to go and get. Yeah. 100,000 tools to go and do that. We pull people to the brand, and when you reward your brand fans, you tend to get a lot of value back from them.
For context, we've worked with Influence Room 4 or 5 years maybe, with clients like Hasbro, Compare the Market, where the mechanic of influencers bidding to take part in what could be a gifted experience shows they're actually interested, and they're already vetted on the platform. Yeah. So I think that's the value it brings us as a business, is when we're doing these scale pay campaigns, but there needs to be an earned piece, or we need to do a gifting piece. Yeah. You provide such a great platform for influencers who are actually interested in the product. From a B Corp perspective, it means there's less waste for us. So I'm a massive Star Wars fan.
Are you?
Yeah, a huge.
I should have brought the remote control for you. I've got various bits
BB-8.
and bobs. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Totally wasted on you,
Yeah,
Alex.
I'm afraid so. There is actually a kicker to the story, actually, which is that I got the box. So the two elements to it is that. One is, I said to the agency, why on earth have you sent me a box of Star Wars? Because I got really interested and curious, and I was starting to sort of think about this concept. Yeah, exactly. And I spoke to the agency that sent it. I said, why have you sent it to me? They said, well, we scraped the data on your Instagram, and apparently your audience has a massively high propensity for Star Wars. And I was like, that's extraordinary. I've got no interest in it at all. It's not something I ever knew about the people that followed me. I don't create very much content on social, but if I do, it's normally about sport. So I thought that was really interesting, because it does show quite a disconnect sometimes between what the data is telling you and who the person is. But the second kicker to the story is that about a week after I received the box and then started this process of looking into whether we could do something a bit better, my son sat down and watched it and became the greatest Star Wars fan of all time. So if the box had arrived a week later, we would be off doing very different things. Could have been like, great, my son loves it, and off we go. And that is part of what we do. Is it's not always just about brand and going to find someone. What we invite are people who have genuine stories. So often we get people bidding and saying, look, I would love to give this to my son or my husband or whatever it is, and I will create the content around looking after the people around me. And that is a really authentic story to tell type thing. So yeah, anecdotal.
I think that's really important, though, that we keep saying the A word on podcasts, authentic, and I think that is so missing. Certainly in the time that the influence room's been around, you've definitely seen, as of we all, that transition from this churn and earn approach, where it's like mass mailers, let's send out a huge swathe of, really wasteful as well, send out a huge swathe of product to people and hope they post. But there's no story there. No. So what I think is really unique about, let's talk a little bit about the process for the room. So influencers and creators, and we can split hairs on that for ages.
Yeah.
KOLs, whatever.
By the time we've finished debating it, it'll have moved on again anyway. So
people with influence, when they join the platform, there'll be an array of campaigns that they can bid to take part in, and then an agency or brand will then select those that put forward the most compelling bid or the most compelling sort of creative for their content.
Or have got the right data set or whatever it might be.
Exactly.
You can use it in whatever way you want.
And I think that piece has always been missing from influencer, particularly from a gifted experiences. What is the ROI? Like, what is the outcome? How are we targeting people? And I think audience data is so important. As you said, though, it's only one part of the journey. Yeah. Because I think when we're taking an audience-first approach, even when it comes to paid campaigns, if the influencer, if the creator isn't the right fit for the campaign, that storytelling piece isn't authentic. It feels really clunky, and there's no payout and there's no return for the brand.
Yeah.
So I think that's often what brands get most wrong, is hoping that partnering with influencer just for their numbers
Yes.
is the right approach.
Yeah.
But it doesn't convey anything that you want from brand messaging perspective.
No, and I think that's really interesting. Where we are very, very good is that sort of top of funnel awareness piece. We're moving into affiliates. We're actually moving into, again, asked by some of our brands, into that sort of commercial space as well, where brands want to use our mechanic to invite people to bid on a commercial opportunity, and there's real value in that. We're actually saving quite considerable budgets for brands because when people want to do something and they're putting themselves forward, if they really want to do something, they will lower their fee to do it because it's something they want to be a part of. So I completely understand what you're saying. What you're describing is very much an addition to what we're doing. It's what the brands need. And so we have added those sort of metrics, content capture into it. We are very good at analysing how the content performs when a brand connects positively through our platform with a person of influence. But it's gone from being quite a sort of romantic notion, I think, the influencer room, into much more of a kind of, the ROI that we need to deliver for brands, etc., has become part of it. But I think at its essence, it still remains about brands putting the right product into the right hands at the right time and allowing the people that are really interested in that opportunity to go and tell that story authentically.
Also from that gifting piece as well, I think there's been a lot of smaller brands that we've spoken to that don't have the budgets to partner with agencies to do scale campaigns. But when it comes to working on gifted campaigns, it allows them to do a test and learn quite cost effectively.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, it's very easy to get going. It's very cheap to get going relative to, I think, what you would pay either to get the people who post to post. It's very quick to get going. I mean, I sort of say this reluctantly, but we have a number of clients that use us, and one or two of them have referred to us as their dirty little secret because it's unbelievably reactive, this thing. And we have saved campaigns for agencies where they've needed 20 people to be running around London in Reebok trainers at 8 a.m. on a Thursday morning, and on Wednesday afternoon they're 17 people short. Well, if you put that on the influence room, you will find 40 people who say, "I'd love to be a part of it." You choose you choose 20, and off you go. So I know this is not necessarily the sort of the best slogan that we should kind of be portraying, but we get told over and over again that it is really good fun. And it's really good fun for a campaign manager when you put your campaign on the platform and suddenly you've got 40 people to pick from who are falling over themselves to go and do it. So again, anecdotal, there's a lot more to it than that. But I love the fact that the clients that use us and get it and use it properly find it really, really good fun.
And huge value as well. How do you get more influencers on the room? What is the process like for them? Is it intense or is it quite a...
No, do you know, funny, so everybody has to apply to be a part of it. And that's because we get rid of bots and fake audiences, and we want good people inside the room. We talk about it as a community of influential people rather than a database. So lots of very good data tools out there where they've got a database of 20 million influencers. That's great. Go use tools like that. I think we're about 30,000 members now in the UK.
Wow.
All of whom have applied, all of whom have been vetted. We actually clean it as we go. So if you don't log in, I think 85% have logged in the last 6 months.
Oh, wow. So it's a really active user base.
So it's a really active user base. If you don't log in, that's not a problem. We'll drop a note at 6 months and say, look, we haven't seen you. And then we sort of, if we don't hear back from you, there's no value for us in having people on there that aren't going to log in, use it, etc. How we get people on. So obviously we now put ourselves in front of people that we think are a good fit on the social channels. Back in the day when we first launched, we had an unbelievably powerful kind of member tool,
right.
and I can't, because you're on the platform. Am I right in saying that? Have you been a part of it or not?
Pretty green, in terms
but
of...
as when you were creating...
No,
you were. Okay, got you. Sorry, I thought you said you had. But we, back in the day, when we launched it, the homepage was a keyhole, a login button, and an apply button.
Right.
And we didn't want anyone really to know what it was that we were doing. And so we had lots of people sort of applying without knowing what was behind the homepage. Exactly. But then we had these unbelievable mornings where... So we used to have Jacuzzi as a client, and it's a really interesting story actually. Jacuzzi came to us and they said, we want to find people who would create content for us around festivals on Facebook.
Right.
They put it on the platform, And everybody went back and said, don't do Facebook. We can create Instagram content for you. It was right at the changeover between, this must have been 7 years ago, what it was. So everyone said, do Instagram. And they actually found one bloke who was an England cricketer who said, look, I can't do festival content for you, but God, I'd love one of these for my rehab during pre-season. So they went with him and they came to us and said, we want festivals and Facebook. And they went away with Instagram and Sporting Rehab, which we thought was really interesting because it's a kind of like often quite influential people can tell you where the direction of what your brand should be doing. What was really interesting about that is that the jacuzzi went into the bloke's garden, and there was about a week later, we had about 20 England cricketers sign up in the morning. And so the bloke had obviously gone into a team meeting and said, you're not going to believe what this platform's given me. Yeah, exactly. We had exactly the same thing with the Hollyoaks cast, who were obviously sitting in a kind of production meeting, and just they all came in at once. It was absolutely hilarious. So we had this very, very good kind of member get member. We reward them when people refer good people to us. But now it's a mixture of that as well as putting ourselves in front of the right people on the right channels.
Talking about, so let's touch on, you said some England cricketers and some was it Hollyoaks you said?
Hollyoaks, yeah.
Does that happen a lot? Is there a lot of high
there's
level?
So again, we're quite sort of discreet about it, but there are some very, very famous people on the platform. And
can you?
I wouldn't, no. But
after you can.
I can tell you afterwards, yeah. But what's so interesting about that is that, so we talk about a triangle of our membership. So the top, I think it was 5% have got 1 million or more followers, and they are
very macro creators.
Yes, it's a big, and actually we're getting a lot of talent agents beginning to use us as well.
Because it's a good, I imagine from a talent agent perspective, working through the influence room gives them a good reputation builder with the brands that are on there.
Absolutely, it gives them an intro. We talk about Tinder and LinkedIn. If you find someone through our platform, you make a really good connection, and you want to take that off into a commercial space. That's brilliant. Off you go. The brand will hopefully always continue to use us because there are always more diamonds in the mine.
Sure.
But I sort of spoke about being a slightly accidental influencer marketeer. It's a much more of a networking tool. And what we've described so far is brands listing opportunities and saying, people come to us if you want to be a part of it. But actually we're about to, and we're sort of running it for a select few, we're about to turn on what is essentially a VIP room where influencers can say, I'm moving house and I'd love to talk to any brands that can help me with building
more bespoke experiences.
Yeah, exactly. It's called Make a Request. But that is also where these talent agents will go. And it's been extraordinary. We had a guy called Dylan Hartley who used to captain England. He became England captain and said to his agent, I'm going to need 10 new suits this year because I've got 1,000 events to go to. And so the agent was ringing through the yellow pages or going online to try and find tailors and saying, hello, would you be interested? Can I put it on the platform saying my client is looking for a tailor? And we had it sorted in 48 hours. And the exchange was, come down to the shop and we'll do some content around your fitting. We'll get the Evening Standard down for an interview. And every time you're out and about doing something interesting, we'd love to just be tagged into whatever the post is. So
that's fast.
It's extraordinary. Yeah.
I think that's what we've seen with the likes of Peppa Pig. There's been maybe a bus tour and we've got to find talent within 24 hours because there's now a layer to it. And I think it's the agility I think that your platform provides, which if you're going through traditional means isn't always a possibility because of red tape or, processes
and there's
in
still
place.
this great value in the outreach element of it, and that's not going to go anywhere. But what we have got is, and we talk about push and pull, agents, brands will always continue to want the right person to be the face of their brand, but there is such a power in finding out who wants to work with you, because often when you meet in the middle, which is what we talk about, you can actually form some really interesting collaborations.
I think that's very true. Are you on the influence room?
I am on the influence room.
What about James and Mike? Are they on there as well?
Classified information, I'm afraid. But I would be pretty irritated with them if they weren't supportive of what I'm doing. Let's put it that way.
Having tough words.
Actually, funny enough, Hask is, if you know Hask, you will know that he's up for almost anything. So he's been a big user for years. Mike is actually more interested in that sort of, he has a huge kind of philanthropist, raises a lot of money for charity. And so we're supporting him on his ski trips and his golf days, etc., by finding brands who want to come play a part of it. So they use it for different reasons.
Sure.
But yeah.
Jacuzzi,
potentially, yeah.
In terms of the makeup of the talent on the platform then, we've touched on there's obviously some top tier, and you said this triangle of platform. So is it, I guess, the most value people can find is obviously that nano to micro to mid-tier talent that are all looking for those.
That's probably where most of the activity takes place. I mean, it's been a very interesting kind of journey as a business. when we launched, I mentioned it was sort of all very discreet. We had some very, very cool brands with some very, very interesting people, but that's quite hard to scale. And so what's happened is, as we've grown, you end up with sort of slight, we were doing sort of private jets and Bentleys and ringside seats at Anthony Joshua fights, and now it is a bit more VIP at the O2,
sure.
et cetera, et cetera. So
I talk more accessible experiences for audiences as well.
Yeah, I think so. What's interesting about that triangle of sort of membership is, I said, so 5% have got 1 million or more, and then it's a bit like a third. So a third have got 100 to 1 million, a third have got 10 to 100, and a third have got under 10. What's really interesting about that is how brands use it. So if you're running a red carpet event, you want to post your opportunity to people with macro audiences, because you want the awareness that it comes with big faces. Exactly. We've actually just sent 10 content creators to China on an unbelievable trip. I mean, the content that has come back is unreal. But the brand wants content, and they want mood videos for their website. They want marketing.
Brand-owned content.
So it's brand-owned content. And what these content creators have got is an experience of a lifetime. But what they've given back is content that the brand will now use across.
And imagine a lot of added value content as well.
Yeah,
Certainly
absolutely.
We see with experiences like that where you're creating this unmissable experience. Yes, you'll get your deliverables that you've agreed. But then if you're providing such value to creators, the payout in terms of output is significant too.
Absolutely right, yeah. And I think that's what I love about the platform we've built, is that anybody can bid on anything, and brands can find people they never knew they love them and can offer, they can offer. We talk about influence in a much broader scope than just tagging someone on Instagram. We have people who've written up experiences in the press, or they have. Actually, sometimes we send international sports people to very cool destinations, and their influences, they will go into the local village and coach cricket, or they will do a Q&A in the bar or whatever it is. That's
so it's not just product in hand.
It's not just product in hand, no. And you can use this platform in whatever way you like. But yeah, so we talk about that sort of that triangle of membership, and brands are able to find almost anyone that they want to collaborate with.
Do you feel there's been any sort of major misconceptions you've had to fight against when it comes to working with influence within the influencer space, within creator economy, or what are some real challenges for you at the moment that you're seeing that you're anticipating or experiencing on the daily?
That's a very good question. I mean, again, and this is where I sort of plead mild ignorance to the industry. We have always felt slightly that we are the fish swimming in the opposite direction. And I quite like that. I think there are some brilliant agencies out there, and some very good data tools, etc. But I go back to the point where we talk about tech-enabled human connection, which is a slightly sort of flowery way of saying it's still about the brand and the person meeting eye to eye and saying, how can we make this work together? We've had some very, very funny meetings where we've gone in, and this was actually a few years ago, where we've gone into big talent agencies and we said, look, this is what we're doing. We'd love to support you. We'd love to help you get your talent on there. We've created the element of the agency account, which means that the agent can run it on behalf of their talent. The talent can use it if they want to. So they can be very protective and very careful about who they let on. And we went into one particular central London talent agency, and I think it was sort of Friday morning. They yawned and scoffed and turned their nose up, and they said, this is not something we will ever, ever, ever put in front of our clients. And we laughed and said, 2/3 of your talent are already on here. They're having an absolute blast. In fact,
here they are.
Well, no, we didn't do that because we'd never give the game away. But so the challenge, therefore, is I think I have a belief that influential people should have 3 strands to their influence. One of which, of course, is commercial activity. You've got to earn money if you're an influential person. 2 is contra, which is what we do, which is you talk about the things you love. And the 3rd is sort of charity and cause. And actually, if you've got an audience and you have got a presence, you should be supporting, the charities and causes that you're close to, because we've got a responsibility to pay back into the pot. So we talk about commercial, contra, and cause, and we run all 3 of those opportunities now, those types of campaign on the platform. And those are, I think, the kind of people that we want to be welcoming into the influencer room and letting them run free.
I like that. I want to go back to, you said, I think you said tech-enabled human connection.
Human connection, yeah.
We're totally on the same page.
Right.
Because I think what we're fighting against is that a lot of platforms, unlike the influencer room, unlike agency side, are really trying to platformatize influence, where it's you don't need that human connection. It's just, okay, here's this massive Pokédex of talent.
But the clearest example of that is the fact that I was sent the Star Wars box because my audience likes Star Wars. I mean, that is a huge issue with just looking at the data.
It's incredibly lazy as well. Yeah. Sure, your audience lines up. I don't know what your audience demographics is, but maybe it's 18 to 44, 60% male based in the UK.
Something like that.
And that is, certainly from my experience and places that I've worked previously, it's been, okay, that's definitely where we need to focus because this person is the audience demographic totally aligns with who we're trying to reach. But I think that's the misstep that we've seen in the industry for the past at least 4 years, where it's been, we are seeing influencers as a media buy because their audience is exactly who we need them to be. Here's a really prescriptive creative brief, they'll do what we need, and then we can just say we've hit it. Yeah. Because I think there's not been people pushing this in the right direction. Yeah. So it's really refreshing to hear that you are also on the same page of like, it can be more white glove, it can be more, the whole industry is built on really creative people that maybe aren't business savvy. No. They don't recognise those 3 pillars as being essential to growth, but they're already doing them, they just don't know it.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think what it feels like to me, and having been doing this now for a few years, is that it does feel that it is all settling a little bit. I think there is a sort of, I think one of the biggest, you asked the question around challenges, one of the biggest challenges we have is educating the brands that use us to be comfortable enough to put themselves into the hands of people that love them and let them tell that story authentically and organically. Taking a risk. It is a risk, but it also isn't a risk, really. It is. There's a fantastic quote, I think it was in Marketing Week or something like that, which is all exactly that. It's about brands should be brave enough to put themselves into the hands of the people who love them, let them tell their story organically. It is a risk to a point. I can probably count on one hand the number of times we have connected a brand with an influencer and it's gone wrong. And that is because influencers are coming forward for the things that they love. And so they're kind of pre-qualifying themselves as a result. Because they love the brand at the very first point, and we talk a lot about our membership about this is good brands and good people and good conversations. Look after the people you are bidding with, deliver what it is you're asking of, you're being asked to. We actually had one the other day where an influencer went to a central London venue for a night out, and it was a really, really, really bad experience.
For the brand and
for the influencer, it all went wrong. But what's really interesting is that the influencer comes back through the app and says to the brand, I'm really sorry, I can't create content for each night because ... And the brand then goes, thank you so much for the feedback. Let's try this again, pick another venue, we will sort it out and really value, I think the maitre d' had gone bananas, all that sort of thing. But it's a feedback loop, the influencer. And what it isn't is grab it and blast it on your Instagram. I'm having a terrible time at this venue and it's all gone wrong. So we ask, if it goes wrong, keep it in-house. If you love it, talk openly about it. So
I think that's really important. I think certainly my time as a creator, I often felt unheard. Yep. So you would have a poor experience, or you'd receive a really prescriptive brief, or you'd be sent to a central London location where you're expected to capture 16 Instagram stories in a reel, and you get there, it can't be facilitated. Yeah. It's a busy space, you can't hear each other. And there's been
it's mission impossible almost.
Oh, 100%. And I think that's because influencers often seen as just a tick box exercise where, like you've said, I think not only is the career itself of being a content creator influencer normalised, well, I'll tell my parents that.
Yeah. When are you going to grow up and get a proper job?
Exactly.
How many people have heard that?
My dad still makes that joke. It's very triggering. Yeah. But I think the career itself is normalised. Yeah. HMRC recognises it as like a taxable, Yeah. Of course they do. Yeah. But I think generally the space is settled. Yes. There's still some elements that are very Wild West, whether it comes to like paid usage for influencer content, brand owned, how long can they own the content for? Yeah. Some brands still don't think there's contracts in place with talent. But I think back to your point on risk, I think what we saw from, I don't know if you went to Madfest this year or last year.
I didn't. I've been to the one in London. I didn't go to Manchester.
Crazy, very busy. Yeah. The biggest outtake, I think, over the past number of years, not just at Madfest, generally influencer conferences, is that being bold and taking a chance and having these brand safety milestones in place with the influence room, you've already got these parameters in place to make sure that influencers are vetted, that there's a creative brief on the table, brands select who they want to work with. From an agency side, we've got contracts as well, same as you do. Yep. Making sure that there's check-ins on creative and creative treatments. There really isn't much risk, unless something goes horribly wrong. No. And then to your point,
and actually, what is the risk? Even if there is, I mean, it's it's sort of
they get the messaging wrong. Yeah, they turn up on the wrong day.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So we have a very well-known household pizza brand that uses us to engage people of influence.
Does it rhyme with Sapper Hons or Homino's?
Doesn't rhyme with Sapper Hons. Okay. But they came to us, and the first campaign they ran, they were absolutely terrified about people creating content with boxes that were crumpled, or
product not looking presentable.
Exactly. And so they wanted to vet all of the content before it went live.
Right.
And so we went through the whole process and delivered all the content. The second campaign, they said, absolutely love it. Away you go. We don't need to see anything, because the brief that they had uploaded said, please do X, Y, Z. Please don't do
We don't
ABC.
see grease marks.
Exactly.
Pizzas folded over.
But when somebody is stepping forward to do that, they read it. They know what the brand is kind of looking for. That's why they are creating the content they are. So it's just a kind of an anecdotal kind of. We often see brands come to us in a very nervous first campaign, and then off the back of it, they absolutely fly. The other thing that I was going to mention very quickly, we did a campaign for a cinema VIP card.
Nice.
It's an all-you-can-eat cinema type thing. Go as often as you want. And they wanted what I think was, and forgive me, but it was very sort of stylized influencers leaning against film posters and saying, I've had a lovely time, and nibbling on popcorn and looking the 10 to the dozen. They had a bid from a football blogger who was pretty out of control in everything he did. But it's just like great fun content, but just totally kind of scatty, energetic. And they were like, this is absolutely not what we're looking for. We said, please, please, please give the guy the card and just let him see what he can do. And he went 5 nights in a row. The content he created was extraordinary, frenetic, energetic, overexcitable. And when they sort of, their hair had calmed down and they sort of digested, they were like, we would never, ever, ever have selected someone like that. But in seeing the way that he used the card, which is exactly how we want people to use it, and the energy and the authenticity and the love that he's got for the cinema, they were like, this is a real learning for us, that when you put it into the hand of the right person, let them tell that story, it doesn't always have to be according to the kind of prescribed output that you think you might be looking for.
I think that's a really nice point. I think we always advocate, so it sounds like you do as well, like a sort of test and learn mindset where 80% of the talent are maybe who you would expect to endorse a brand, say.
Yep.
We had a really fun experience where, it's actually when I first joined Pretty Green, where we're working with a audiobook and podcasting platform. And I said, well, why are we not working with ASMR creators? Are you familiar with ASMR?
Yeah, yep.
Awful. Absolutely hate ASMR. But I also find it really intriguing. I can't stop watching.
Right.
Especially when they're doing like the sticky things.
Yeah,
and whispering into the microphone.
Yeah.
So we said, look, you've got this, it was a sleep aid podcast coming up.
Right.
So we said, let's partner with some ASMR creators. I'm like, oh, well, it just feels like a really niche vertical. And I was like, well, yeah, it is. But have you seen the numbers these guys are doing?
Yeah.
And people are watching these YouTube videos for hours.
Yeah.
What it translated into was the most effective campaign they'd seen for driving user acquisition. People that were familiar with long form sound on content, coincidentally, who knew, love to listen to sleep aid podcasts.
Amazing.
So there's so much value in taking a fresh perspective. I think you said naive expertise.
Yes.
Taking that perspective on partnerships, or even if it's a brand we've worked with for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
I think an influencer strategy is only relevant for maybe 6 months because platforms change, types of creators, formats. So yeah, I liked that you'd endorse this football creator for the.
Well, I think it's just interesting. It's interesting for brands sometimes just to see what the people that love them will do for them. And that's what we are constantly championing: is be brave enough to connect with the people that say, "I really want to be a part of this," and see what they can do.
I've got one more question for you before we get onto our lie detector test.
Yeah.
Don't worry, there's no ECG situation.
I'm a trained assassin.
I haven't got the budget for that.
Right, yeah.
Can slow your heartbeat.
Yeah.
So you said probably the weirdest, not weirdest, but the strangest thing you'd receive as not being a Star Wars fan was a Star Wars mailer.
Yeah.
What's the weirdest thing that the influence room has sent out? You said jacuzzi.
The sent out. We did once do a campaign for, I can't remember if it was death insurance or...
Fun.
That was a really weird one. I think it was something like that. We've never run a campaign that hasn't had interest. That is the extraordinary thing.
Really?
There was one anecdote, which was, as I said, when we sort of launched this, it was really cool people and really cool things, and we actually went into an agency for a while as a sort of scaling opportunity, and one of their clients was Sainsbury's, and they put $4.99 unicorn. I think it was unicorn and Dachshund cakes on the platform, and I slightly had my head in my hands. I was like, this is not the tech platform I thought I wanted to build. And I was like, this is never going to work. You can walk around the corner and buy it for a £5. Anyway, they put the cake on, and within
Just the cake. They didn't get anything else.
It was literally a cake, a $4.99 cake. And within a couple of hours, they'd had more interest in cake than you could possibly imagine, including some really, really, really famous people who said, my daughter's birthday is tomorrow. She loves unicorns. We'd love a cake. And so Sainsbury's sent out cakes and unicorn cakes appeared on famous feeds at kids' birthday parties.
I suppose maybe that's because they love the brand Sainsbury's and they're like looking to build.
I think they love the unicorn. I
They
mean,
love a unicorn,
there are
they're
levels of advocacy and authenticity and all that sort of thing. And sometimes it's just really opportunistic. I'd love a cake type thing. And actually there's value in
this economy, a $4.99 cake.
There you go.
There we go.
Cost
of living crisis.
Yeah, that was a slightly curious one.
Okay. Unicorn cakes.
Unicorn cakes.
I didn't expect you to go there, but you did.
Yeah, there we go. Ticked.
Well, this is now my favourite part of the podcast because not me, someone on the team has deep dived your LinkedIn profile.
Right. If they can help me with it on the way out, that would be very helpful.
Optimise your profile.
Definitely.
Well, I've got the handy lie detector scorecard here, scoreboard.
I'm already in fourth place, so I'm not confident that will change.
You don't know. There's 15 questions.
Okay, let's see how we go.
God,
India did quite well then.
Yeah, I didn't.
Right.
7.
Okay.
This is, I say this every time, this is where the budget went.
Right.
What they said logo and
good.
This wonderful
big spenders.
So what I'm going to do is whittle through 15 quick fire questions based on your LinkedIn profile.
Yep.
And then I'll tell you if you got them right or wrong.
Okay.
I'm sure you haven't memorised your LinkedIn profile.
I haven't, I'm afraid.
If you had,
it
would come in really handy right now. So I'm going to get the questions up. Are you ready to be interrogated?
I'm ready to be interrogated.
What's your LinkedIn headline?
What is a LinkedIn headline?
That's the bit of the, it says like, Alex
Oh,
Payne,
who I am. It is
top
something
dog
like, no, definitely not that. It's something like weekdays CEO of the influence from weekends sports presenter or something like that.
Spot on.
Good.
Spot on.
1 out of 1.
Are you verified?
Not on LinkedIn.
I feel like you should be.
Yeah.
What is your first workplace on your profile?
God. IMG.
Correct.
Little internship there many years ago.
What was your role there? This is not a question.
So when I was 20 odd, they were the biggest sports agency in the country at the time, and I got an internship there where I was logging how often a brand was on screen during rowing races with a stopwatch.
That's quite niche.
Very, yeah.
A lot of screen time.
A lot of people would say I should probably still be logging brands on screens with a stopwatch, but we've managed to blag our way slightly.
Moved on from that.
Yeah, ever so slightly.
Could you name 3 skills listed on your profile?
No. Sports, television.
Yep.
Tech.
It's not on there.
TV.
I feel like your TV encompasses...
Podcasting? Media?
Weirdly, the podcast is not on there. Media's also not on there.
Right, okay. No, I don't know.
Digital strategy, influencer marketing. Telling me you're not interested in influencer marketing.
There you are. Okay, cool. I've ticked the right boxes at least.
Tick
Yes.
the right boxes. Television, sports, and presenter.
Okay.
So television.
Yeah. Okay.
I feel like encompass those 2.
Okay.
How many workplaces do you have on your profile? I don't think that means currently. I think that just means in general.
In general, IMG, Sky, Influence Room, Good Bad Rugby, Black Eye Gin. 5?
5, correct.
5.
When did you last post on LinkedIn? Are you a regular poster?
I'm a regular reposter.
Okay.
I've actually given the keys to my
Chronic
LinkedIn to our team. Yeah, chronic reposter. Apparently that's good for the algorithm, someone told me. I don't know.
Say.
So I will repost most of what the Influence Room posts. So would that be this week?
Biggest fan.
Yes, exactly. Someone's got to be. So yeah, I'll take the role.
Yeah, 6 days ago.
Okay, yeah.
I'll give you that one because you actually went into quite a lot of detail, which is good.
Yeah.
How long have you been in your current role? So you've got 3 roles. So I'm going to need at least one of them.
So the Influence Room, 8 years?
Correct.
Good
Does
Bad
it feel like 8 years?
I can't remember life before it actually. It was a very interesting kind of anecdotally. It was a very interesting time because I had this kind of career as a sports broadcaster, which was really sort of I had a spreadsheet that just took me all the way to 65. Being a sports presenter with a little 5% increase every year, nice. And there was a lot of cappuccinos and makeup, and it was very easy.
A lot of travel.
A lot of travel actually. And then I went into a contract renegotiation where I thought I was getting a new 3-year contract and on we'd go. And they just said, you're out of here in 6 weeks. And they'd lost all of the rights to what I was showing, and I sort of hadn't read the room very well. And thought
you set up your new one.
And so I'd literally started the Influence Room probably about 6 months before, and it definitely wasn't ready to be a full-time kind of operation. It was a bit of a hobby, and we were trying.
But did that accelerate?
So I had to leap into it and go great guns into it. So I sort of look at things like that. And actually, I then started the podcast at exactly the same time, both of which I enjoy infinitely more than I ever did the sort of traveling around the. Well, I did love it for various periods, but by the end I'd done 20 years. I was really quite bored of it.
Your air miles were too high. You thought, hang up
it was just rinse and repeat every week.
Yeah.
So I actually feel very grateful for what at the time was the biggest challenge I professionally had to take on. It's led to way more fun, opportunity. So
and this podcast.
And here we are at the very peak of the mountain.
It doesn't get better than this.
It does not get better than this. No.
Where was your longest term of employment?
That would have been Sky, I think.
Do you have the number of years?
Well, I'm still doing stuff for them, actually. I'm off to do my 7th Lions tour for them this summer. So it would be 22 years.
I'll take your word for it. Whoever did this was silly. This is 21 on here, but you're let's go with what you said.
21 years.
21 years.
Yeah. So I'd have joined in 2003 and started presenting in 2004. So 21, 22.
That's a small adult's lifetime.
Makes me an old man. And that's come around quickly as well.
No. Legal to drink in America?
Yes, just about.
Name the LinkedIn newsletter you're subscribed to. We went deep on this one. This is a lot. Yeah,
name the LinkedIn newsletter I'm subscribed to.
Any one of them.
The Pretty Green Weekly.
I'll give you that one. Are you though?
I don't know. Is that no? I've got no idea.
You didn't know we have a newsletter,
right?
Pretty Green
I didn't actually know you did have one.
I think we do one a month.
Perfect. Okay. Well, I'll subscribe to that one. I've got no idea what LinkedIn newsletter I'm subscribed to.
How many followers does the Influencer Room page have?
9,400.
What did you say? 9,000. I had two answers.
9,400.
That's incorrect. Okay, I've got 5,000 written here, so
okay.
I don't know if this is correct.
Yeah, that's probably right.
Okay,
yeah. Over promise, under deliver.
There we go. I'm going to get that tattooed onto my forehead.
Yeah.
So people know what to expect when I walk in the room.
I think our LinkedIn page is actually growing quite well at the moment.
Sure.
It's been undervaluing it and neglected for a long time, but we are actually doing some quite good work with it now.
Around the team. LinkedIn influencer.
What's that mean?
Well, LinkedIn influencer.
Oh, okay, cool.
Like a B2B.
Yeah, an influencer.
We'll chat about that some other time. Between which years were you at university?
Oh, well, this is slightly an unkind question, but it would have been 1999 and 2003.
So we've established you're the oldest in the room.
Yeah, that's fine.
Great.
That's fine.
How long was your internship? God, we ran out of questions, didn't we?
Yeah.
How long was your internship at IMG?
I've done one or two quite interesting things with my life, but this is definitely portraying in a very, very depressing fashion.
Older than you expected, and also least exciting roles.
Yes, least
we
exciting
like to build up guests on this podcast.
How long was my internship?
We can skip this.
Was that a question?
Yeah, that was the question.
I think it was 2 months, 3 months, 2 months, 3 months.
The questions get even better.
How
many recommendations have you given out on LinkedIn? Oh, you're quite tight on them.
Right. I'm not a massive LinkedIner. How many recommendations? Well, actually, I have without sort of breaking the immerser, if anyone ever needs a recommendation, I ask them to write it and then I will post it. And then
I'll hit you up after this. I'll give you a few that you can endorse me for.
3.
12.
Well, that's better than I thought it was going to be.
More than I've ever done.
I've got a thing in life as well, which is I'm not very good at the Uber rating, and I'm now so bad on Uber that I'm now saying.
What, people rate you badly, the drivers?
No, it's more that I hate that kind of, will you rate your driver? Or will you rate your Deliveroo?
Thankfully, nobody rates me on my daily work.
But I'm now so low that I'm actually trying to see how far you can go. Like, if you get a 2.6 rating on Uber, will anyone actually
You want to establish what rock bottom
what is rock bottom is.
Yeah.
That's the experiment I'm
running.
Well,
the only way is up after there, so...
If you say so, yeah.
What 4 sports are listed in your About section?
What 4 sports are listed in my About section?
Can I come up with some more fun ones?
Well, rugby's got to be in there.
Yes, it is. Surprisingly.
Tennis?
Correct.
Poker?
Is that a sport?
It was televised on Sky Sports, which technically classifies it as a sport.
Correct.
And football?
That's not on there. You got triathlon.
Oh, yeah. So I'm doing. Yeah, that's right.
Are you doing a triathlon?
I'm not doing. I do present the triathlon. I'm off to Singapore in a few weeks to do that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Weather's great this time of year.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that.
Final question. You'll be pleased to know. How many LinkedIn followers do you have?
Oh, I've got no idea.
More than the room.
Do I?
Room, yeah.
I didn't even know that. I didn't even know what LinkedIn following was. Is that like connections? I've got about 5,000 connections.
Basically, someone sends you a connection, but you're like, I don't know you, so I'll just let you follow me instead. Like a creep.
I wasn't aware I'd been doing that. I'm going to say 5,000.
People can also choose to follow you, by the way. So you're not actually vetoing them all.
Right.
No, you got more than that.
Right. Okay.
9,000,400.
I didn't know that.
Start taking some brand deals on your LinkedIn. I think
you're very welcome. Yeah.
Well,
that is officially the worst quiz I've ever done, without sort of doing anyone down on
Thank you.
or out of a job.
I thought it was a bit shit as well.
Yeah.
So
yeah. What, and do we have a
renew
score?
that one again. The score was 10.
Well, I'm very pleased with that.
So do you want to write your name on there?
I can write my name on there, just about. Yeah.
It's like an immersive experience. You just have to read round the pod.
Yeah. Good. Well done. India definitely knows her onions quite well, doesn't she?
Yeah.
10.
Tell me you sit on LinkedIn without telling me.
Tell me. Yeah. Exactly. Perfect. Okay.
So,
the perfect 10.
Fantastic. So
thank you, Sammy.
You're above me.
I'm above you.
I'm gonna.
You really? Yes. I'm.
Remove myself.
Yeah.
I'm not obsessed with myself. You see. So
No. Well, I think mine was more luck than design. But,
I think
we'll
my
take
questions are just a bit naff. But thank you, Alex. This has been a really enlightening podcast. I
Thanks
feel
for
like
having me on.
I've had to raise the bar.
You've done just that. You've done
Thank
just
you.
that.
What was the quote you said? Low expectations. It was
You under promise, over deliver. Yeah.
We are now changing. I'm going to change my headline on LinkedIn to be that.
Perfect.
But thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
If people want to find you, they can find you on LinkedIn.
On LinkedIn, apparently, yeah.
Yeah. He won't accept to connect, but you can follow him.
I get some very curious. I do check it every. I get some very curious connections with sort
the
of
Star Wars lead at Disney.
building contractors in Singapore. And
Oh right, okay.
It's not a very sort of refined influencer marketing community, but
No.
everyone's welcome.
But you're creating a community, so that's all that matters.
Something like that. Yeah.
If you are interested in the influencer room, it's theinfluencerroom.
We are the Influence Room. We have, as we said, changed our name about half a dozen times, but we are www.theinfluenceroom.com, not the influencer room, which is
common misconception.
Which how most people refer to, I think, because of the URL. But yeah, we're at theinfluenceroom.com.
And you're open to influencers and creators joining the platform still?
Always, everyone's welcome. Yeah,
check it out.
So long as you're a good person with legitimate kind of numbers and create good content, very welcome indeed. And if you're a brand looking for some brand love, come and give us a tap out.
Thank you so much for joining us. It's been a real pleasure, and we'll be back next time. But in the meantime, you can tell me if I'm doing this in the right way.
You're perfect.
You're far more versed in podcasting than me, but please make sure you leave this a review, because then we can show my boss that it's worth me keeping my job. If you could comment all sorts of things, doesn't matter what it is, actually, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify.
YouTube.
We do have a YouTube channel.
YouTube.
Need to get a haircut for the next one. It means a lot. And we'll see you again next time, where we'll be deep diving into even more fun LinkedIn profiles. And I know you can't wait. See you soon.